Let's check it, everybody. Happy Monday. It's a happy Monday here on House Divided. Longhorns win, Aggies win, Cowboys win. A lot of winning this weekend, unless you're Notre Dame, which that doesn't make any of us sad, I don't think. Do us a solid like, comment, subscribe, bingo, bango, bongo, and maybe even get notifications while you're at it. As long as you're doing things, feel free to jump into the Specs chat. Hit us with your super chats. We will be interactive. We will talk recruiting because there could be a 5-star commitment looming maybe in the near distant. I don't know. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Steve Sarkisian just finished up his Monday press conference. Longhorns pistol whipped Michigan a couple of days ago. There's a lot in this show today that we're going to talk about. So I don't know how much we need to talk about what Sark just discussed before we get into Javen Hilson and some of the other topics on tap for today. Thoughts on Sark?
I thought he was good as always, maybe even better than he normally is. I mean, why wouldn't you be after a performance like that? I thought a few different things stood out, but I will go to when he was asked about negatives or something to work on. I kind of liked his answer. He talked about perimeter blocking, trying to, spring bigger runs and bigger plays. But he also mentioned killer instinct catch, which I thought was interesting, where he said he went back in the second half, and even though they're controlling things, right, they're doing what they want to do, they scored one touchdown in that second half, and he's going back over things with a fine-tooth comb. And that killer instinct mentality, I think, is going to serve him well moving forward. So if I was a Texas fan today, I would like the fact that my coach liked what he saw, but he also sees a way forward to get even better.
Yeah, and I think that message was to him and his coaching staff as much as the players. I think that when I heard him say that, I think that applies to everybody, and I think that includes himself. I don't think Steve Sarkisian is the type of guy that when he says the offense only scored 7 points, he excludes himself from that, right? Well,
he leads that comment.
He does. He puts himself out in front. It's one of the things I've always loved about Sarkisian. It's the thing I've felt like you never want to take away from him. I feel like you almost neuter him as a head coach by taking away his power in the offense, specifically with the play calling. That's his baby, and he doesn't run from the responsibility. We've seen other coaches. We saw Tom Herman get squeamish over the exact same thing, not the killer instinct, the part, just the running the offense part. So I think you're right. I think that's as big of a message as anything else that he'll say this week, because that really is about, when I say us, he's talking to his team, us, and he's saying, forget about the opponent this week. Whoever we play, this is what we need to do better at. So this week, it's about us. Now, he talked about UTSA. They're a wounded animal. This is when a team is always the most dangerous. Now, those things become cliche because there are some truths embedded in that somewhere along the way. We've seen the wounded animal team thing in sports pop its head up all the time. But a lot of time, those are good teams.
Right. But there's also a lot of space catch between they're a wounded animal that can beat you and they're a wounded animal that can produce a result that would piss you off. If you're Steve Sarkisian, there's a version of that game where, let's say the final is 35-20.
Yeah.
Okay, you win the game and you won by 2 full touchdowns, but that could really piss him off if it looks a certain way. I think that's what he was saying about wounded, because it's easy to look at what just happened. Texas State killed them. Yeah. Texas State eviscerated UTSA, but they're going to come back and obviously they're going to play, and maybe things don't go as perfectly as it did in the start at Ann Arbor. Maybe there is a little sluggishness coming off, to start. And if so, that'll upset him.
There wasn't a whole lot. I thought Anwar's question about the wide receivers and kind of how he got to
that was great.
How he selects. That's the type of really interesting question that if you get it asked at the right day, when Sarkisian's in a mood, like that was a really good question.
Yeah, and also whether Anwar meant to, he set Sark up to remind everybody that the two fastest guys ever at the combine, he had them both. He coached them both.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we always talk about big humans as like a Sark, Kyle Flood. Like they're just gravitated towards that they want that in the program. And we kind of lose sight of the fact that sometimes like super fast humans are also right at the top of the most desired list. I thought it was really interesting to hear him say that there's very few times, and some of it's kind of obvious, but to hear him say it and then think about how they apply that to selecting both receivers in high school football recruiting and in the portal, I thought was really interesting. They don't throw the ball very often to guys that are kind of stationary. You're not throwing at guys who are posting up and boxing out as much as you're throwing to moving targets. And he wants guys that when they catch it, they can run after the catch. He explained it really well. Kind of go away from the NFL with the ISOs and the two backs, and suddenly the field is spread. And in that game, I want guys that can get into the part where the field has been spread, and then I want them to run really fast once they get the ball in those areas. We still see receivers sometimes, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example of one. Andrew Marsh, right? Big old receiver. He's committed to Michigan. A&M and Texas had him on campus 1,000,000 times each, but it never felt like Texas quite made him one of their number one most desired guys. And people would ask all the time, like, why doesn't Sarkisian seem to like Andrew Marsh? He's awesome. Why doesn't he like this guy a little bit more? And I think now moving forward, when I see some of these bigger receivers that Texas seems to not quite be in as on as some of the other guys, I think very easily we'll just be able to point to Sarks likes guys that can move after the catch. And if you're a leaper, if you're a high point guy, if you're he catches the ball well in traffic, that might not be for what Sarkisian wants. Because if you think about it, that's not what Xavier Worthy does. What do we actually nitpick Xavier Worthy about? When Xavier Worthy had his problems, people in addition to he's got a broken hand and look how many passes he's dropping, but people would say he doesn't go up and fight for the ball. He's not. That's not what Sark just told us. That's not what he wants. They get the ball to guys while they're on the move, and then he wants guys to keep being on the move. He doesn't want them jumping up high and then coming down and having to do a bunch of shakes and stuff. He wants guys already moving. I thought it was really interesting. It was not many times you get insight into the window of the head coach's soul as it regards like how he views building his program. So good job, Anwar. Some of that stuff we kind of already knew, but to hear Sark explain it to us, I think gave us some insight that we'll be able to use moving forward.
Couple of super chats already in today, and already over 600 folks in the Specs chat. Why don't we get everybody restocked from the weekend? Here's Lisa to remind you about Specs.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Remember, you got a whole day of college football before Texas plays UTSA. They kick at 6 on Saturday evening, so get all stocked up. Oscar starts us off. He's our man over at the 40 Acres, $10 super chat. I don't care what anyone thinks about That defense is littered with NFL talent and an NFL DC that is out-talented, out-coached, and most importantly, out-physicaled them. Tell them, Chad. There you go, Oscar. I told him. Texas certainly told him on Saturday.
I'm not poo-pooing Michigan. What I think of Michigan today, Chad, is what I thought of Michigan a week ago. And I still think it's a good football team that will win probably 9 games this year, but there's a reason why I thought Texas would win as convincingly as they did. And I don't find myself wanting to show up on a Monday and dog cuss Michigan and make it sound like they're not what they are. What they are. They're going to be really good in time.
We're going to see how to compare them by the end of the year to the Bama team that Texas beat last year. When Texas walked out of Tuscaloosa, some were saying, okay, that was a wounded Bama team. It's a different Bama team. That's not Saban's best. Okay, that team ended up in the playoff. With all said and done, beat Georgia and ended up in the playoff. I don't quite think Michigan's going to have that feel, but I'm with you. I think there's still some good coming with Michigan. Now, if you're a Texas fan, you just kind of pay attention from a distance.
If you're Michigan, you got your Ohio State tune-up. Okay. With
Definitely.
This group of players.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to need to do to step up and play and win that game. But they won't play anybody else that is like that. Yeah. So, if you're Michigan, lick your wounds. You're a championship ball club. They'll be fine. I don't anticipate Michigan collapsing and us looking back and going, well, that win just wasn't worth anything. I think Michigan will end up being a respectable team. I don't think they'll win the Big Ten or anything like that. And I doubt they'll play in that championship game. But look, man, there are going to be a lot of good SEC teams that don't play in the SEC championship game either.
Yeah, that's fair.
There are going to be teams that take some L's, and Michigan took one, and I wouldn't bury them just yet.
Michigan down to 17 in the AP. They play Arkansas State in non-conference this week. Thank you for that super chat. Thanks, Mark, for this one. $5. Sark gives the best birthday gift. Beat Bama on 9-9 last year and Michigan 2 days ago. Happy birthday, Mark. This team could be special. Cheers to HD and Orange Bloods. Yeah, Mark, just bask in it. My father-in-law's birthday today is too. He's a 9-9 guy as well. So shout out to all those September 9th birthdays and hell of a birthday.
Mark Gastineau.
Whew, that's it. The Mark Gastineau day. That's a good 99 from back in the day. Yeah, I mean, Catch, it's a season that at this moment, the season that I naturally go to, and I know you've done it too, I've seen fans do it. Your 10 thoughts from the weekend had references to 05. It's got that feel to it in terms of a special quality. And now it's going to be, to me, today is about like 05 and then some. 05 and there's other ingredients. I mean, because they're going to face some things that they didn't even have to deal with in 05, but a 50-point win, a 50-point not margin, but a 50-point score, and win your first game, then go on the road and win a ranked game like that. There is only one time Texas has ever done those two things to start a season. Once. That's it. And it's 05. And then they went on a tear. Go pull up the 05 schedule, because at that moment, Texas goes on an absolute tear through pretty much the entire season. The slip-ups, if you want to call them that, maybe it's one. The slip-up was like an 11-point win. The slip-up was fall down maybe in a game, but then come back and whip somebody. So I think
they slapped people around is what they did.
Yeah, Mark, you and all Texas fans, enjoy this. Jason Sukamel was trying to rush to that OU and Georgia game. I would tell all of you, chill, breathe.
Enjoy these games. Pimp slap some people around.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Enjoy it. You're gonna see more Colin Simmons sacks. You're gonna see Silas Bolden get on the field and more Arch Manning. Like the next few weeks actually have a chance to be a lot more fun than ho-hum. We're just gonna beat a team into the ground. I think everybody needs to bask in the sun a little bit. Take a victory lap on Saturday. It's okay. Be really, really good and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, this is the Catch. I was watching one of the Superman movies the other day, and there's a scene where he just flies up into outer space to get recharged by the sun. And I think that's what Texas fans and the team and everything kind of get to do now. It's like whatever that may have taken out of you, and it didn't look like it took much. That wasn't exactly kryptonite on the field, but just that image of him soaking up all those rays, man. That's the way I envision Texas fans today. If you guys want to throw a super chat our way, it will get right to the front of the list.
We need to tell the super chats. We need to do their Javen Hilson thing because we're 15 minutes into the show, and it's bad YouTubing to not hit the thumbnail yet.
Yeah, that is exactly where I was going. I was going to say, if you get us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list. We don't have any right now, so we're going to get to the issue that we were going to today in the title. And Catch, it's the sequence of events in recruiting that has already started. Let's catch everybody up on what happened, because as we were into the post game, Texas gets a flip, and then it feels like that could lead to some other things.
It's really funny. If you go back to our last House Divided we were talking about, and Cody, I see you tipping the dealer $1 a pop. We'll get to you. I don't even know what it is that you need or want, but we will get to you because you just hit us with a colon.
Cody.
It's like $1. It was just nothing, no message. Maybe he just likes us, $1 worth. But in the war room on Friday, when we were talking about it, I talked to some Florida State sources on Thursday. And there was very much an attitude of it's not a if, it's a win with Myron Charles, the defensive lineman out of Port Charlotte, 6'4", 300 pounds. One of those guys that Texas, even when they lost him in the summer, they were not going to quit. It became pretty obvious, I think, for the last couple of weeks that was a win and not if commitment. And I asked them about Jay, because at this point, Florida State, but I think going into yesterday was sitting at 13 commitments. And they're going backwards. You know, once upon a time, it wasn't that long ago when Texas was sitting at 13 and there was a little bit of panic. I was like, don't worry. They're going to get theirs. We've seen how this 3-act play kind of unfolds. Texas fans panic. Texas responds. Texas flips. Like that's kind of there's like a thing. And I asked about Javen Hilson, 5-star defensive end out of Cocoa, Florida. Number 15 player in the country, 6'5", 230. Just the way God intended his defensive ends to be, tall and athletic and fast.
Best defensive end in the country, correct?
Yes, at the weak side defensive end. So he's this year's Colin Simmons.
Okay.
If you want to think of it like that, he's a little taller than Simmons, built in the same mold. Their guys are going to go that are projected, go get the quarterback. He committed to Florida State, and Texas finished second. But when he committed to Florida State, it felt like it was a distant second. But then there started to be rumors about Hilson, and everybody on that Florida State commitment list is being attacked by schools who are like, you know, they're in The Wedding Singer when, you know, he starts to, when Robbie starts to, the Adam Sandler character starts to lose it on stage, and you've got the guy who's like, he's losing his mind.
During
and I am going to get all of the business.
Love stinks.
There's a little bit of that going on with this Florida State recruiting class. You've got people who are peeking behind the curtain, and they're like, oh, this meltdown is perfect for business. So when I talk to the Florida State guys, they're like, yeah, man, Myron Charles, that's going to happen. Javen Hilson, we think for now he's solid. Maybe we'll have to worry about him later in the year, but we don't see any signs right now that we need to worry about Hilson. He's kind of as pro-Florida State as it gets. 3 days later, Javen Hilson decommitted from Florida State.
Yes. Didn't flip, didn't reestablish a list, but did decommit from Florida State.
He did decommit from Florida State. And so now it's, what does this mean for Texas? Right? Because Texas finished number 2, but it didn't feel like a big deal number 2. How soon might he make a decision? And who else do you have to worry about? Those feel like the primary pressing questions with Javen Hilson. Look, number 1, Texas is in the catbird seat right now. In fact, Steve Wiltfong from On 3 put in a Fong bomb.
Yeah, Fong bomb.
Maybe I'm just jealous because I haven't thought of catch call. I haven't,
Sounds like something that could work in your kitchen. Do you have roaches? Bomb bomb.
Like why can't I have a catch bomb? Actually, you guys don't answer that. You'll 85% me, or it's Austin, and I get it.
Yeah.
But that happened today. It was only a 50% confidence rate, which
the old, hey, you know what? Flip a coin. Let's go. Come on.
How do you feel about it?
Is she going to say yes to the prom invite? I don't know. It's about 50-50.
She could say yes or no.
That's right. She could say yes, or I might have to ask my mom. It's like right there. It's right there.
So the thing is, I think there is sentiment and there is reason to believe that Texas is absolutely in the catbird seat there. When he made the announcement yesterday, he made a point to say, look, like I'm going to make my final decision in December. So now, a lot of time guys just say that. I mean, there's probably more guys that decommit and say they're going to announce a final decision in December and then announce a commitment 5 days later. That happens all the time. So I wouldn't get too caught up in it's definitely December. It very well could be December. However, if this kid flipped to Texas by the end of the week, and I guess flip, again, technically you're right, Chad, it's not a flip. This kid could commit to Texas by the end of the week. I wouldn't be shocked at all. But Miami has been flirting with him a little bit. If you want to know who's the team to worry about, you'd probably throw out Alabama. You'd probably definitely Miami, although he hasn't visited Miami yet officially. If you go back and look at the unofficial visits, he went to Florida State, he went to Texas, he went to Florida, he went to Central Florida. This has been a guy that has mostly looked in-state outside of the visit to Texas. He took 4 official visits in the summer. 3 of them were to in-state schools. Miami's been playing a little footsie after really not being a big deal with him at all. So I think there's some thought maybe he takes an official visit to Miami when it's all said and done. That could be a big deal, right? So if we're talking about things that potentially loom in the distance, beyond that, maybe Alabama. But this looks like it could go very well for Texas. And this guy is an absolute badass. This is the kind of guy that if you're Texas and you can get this guy in your class, we could go back and have those conversations about Decorian Moore and Michael Fasusi, Chad, and you could take Hilson and you could say, would you rather have, if you could pick badass wide receiver, badass offensive lineman who's a left tackle or a pass rushing edge? Yes, please is typically the answer.
Yes.
Don't make me choose between all of these really important positions. I could make the case that edge is the most important position outside of quarterback when you can get your hands on them. So this guy's a really big deal. Suddenly, it's a little further along than it was a week ago when, hey, could Texas get in on Hilson? Because guys are jumping off that FSU ship left and right. Well, he's off the ship. So it's definitely game on. And like I said, there's a lot of reason to believe that Texas is in more than excellent shape as things stand.
The other thing I would connect to at catch is I keep going back to Myron Charles and Hilson had their official visit to Texas on the same day. So they went in on the same day. They were both Florida State commitments. Sorry. They were both Florida State commitments. One just flips outright. The other just decommits. And then to bring back in the number 1 linebacker we've talked about, Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, if he indeed comes in on that Georgia weekend, well, then you've got the number 1 guy at a linebacker spot that if he shows any interest in Texas, you got this other guy that's number 1 at D end that has decommitted from somewhere else and has opened things up. He's been to Texas, and he might notice if the best linebacker starts to care about Texas. That's how you could start to build a class catch that is like Georgia, Ohio State, and for 1 year, that A&M group that everybody talks about, if you can put together that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny to think about now because we're so far on the other side of it. But before the Khalid commitment, when I mentioned that I had a source that was very, very confident, the wolf, oh, when the wolf is telling me, yo, just watch. Okay? They feel like August is going to be a good month. That there's reason to believe that it's going to be a very good month. And then there's a sense behind the scenes that Texas is going to flip some dudes. And then they're going to kill it in the portal because there are already signs and whispers and agents probably doing agent things where it's like, look, if my guy's not happy, would you be interested? That kind of things. I don't know. But there were signs behind the scenes. Texas feels very good despite the loss, Riley Pettyjohn, despite the loss to Corian Moore, despite what would eventually be the loss to Michael Fasusi. There was still a sense that just watch. Don't judge yet. Don't be judgy. Judge us after August. So what happens in August? They get Khalid Lockett. They get Jonah Williams. They get Jamie French. They start flipping Josiah Sharma. They flip Myron Charles. And, what's interesting about both of those guys is that neither one of those defensive tackles comes with a super blue chip ranking. Neither is like a national top 50 player. But Texas has evaluated both of those guys and said more than anybody else, these are the two that we want the most. Now, I don't mean to be disrespectful of DJ Sanders, who Texas would have absolutely taken a commitment from. We go back and think about Zion Williams. Texas had guys that they were offering, guys that visited, guys that they would have taken. But the number 2 guys on their wish lists were the 2 guys that originally they lost. But now they flipped them. They flipped Josiah Sharma. They flipped Myron Charles. I think they would tell you they couldn't like their defensive tackle class anymore. The only thing that's left is to flip a few more guys, I guess. And I think, I think Hilson would have to eventually count as a flip, even if technically not a flip. I mean, if he committed today, would we call it a flip? Like, there's what we're talking about is very trivial stuff, Chad. But if he decommits and commits to another school on the same day, we call it a flip. What's the statute of limitations for when a guy decommits, and then how much time has to go by before we no longer call it a flip?
See, that's what I was going to ask you. I know that's a nerdy recruiting question, but if Myron Charles, what he just did is a flip, then if Hilson eventually ends up at another school besides Florida State, let's even say it's not Texas, whatever, but you open up commitment, then eventually you pick another school. What is that? A slow pan? A turn? Like, instead of a flip, is that a turn? Or is that a...
I feel like if Hilson committed to Texas this week, it would be a flip.
You give it a week. So a week is a flip. Outside of that, what is it? A turn? And I changed my mind? A modern day recruiting story?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I also have
a rethought.
2 other things from talking to sources that I would point out at this exact moment in time, okay? Number 1, back in June, I was telling everybody, look, people in the football program, they feel like flip season's about to get bonkers. That this is going to be the most active decommit and, flip, decommit, whatever we want to call it. It's about to be crazy, and it won't be just limited to a couple of schools. And right now it feels very much like a Florida State-centric thing. Mm-hmm. But one of the things in talking to sources that makes a lot of sense was, and you can look at the state of Texas as a perfect example. Last I checked, 98 of the top 100 prospects in the state of Texas had already committed.
Damn.
So what that means is all of the schools that are recruiting all of those prospects, they know what the situation is.
They're not all getting them.
If a kid's committed to Baylor, for instance, and Baylor's out here telling you, hey, we pay our players. And if Baylor's got a 4-star guy, and let's say they're paying him $250,000 a year, you know that now. So if you really want him, you know what you got to go do from a financial standpoint. I think that's different. If you live in a world where everybody's announcing late, then it's harder to flip guys because, it's like, well, guy's going to make a decision on December 1st. He announces on December 5th, or he's committed or signing on the 5th or 6th. There's not a whole lot of time to respond. What I had heard from Texas sources when guys committed to Florida State or they committed to Oregon was, okay, well, we know where things are. We haven't made big NIL pushes, but we got an idea what all these guys that didn't commit to us, what their NIL situations look like. So if we want to go back in on that guy, we know what we've got to do. And across the country, you are going to see that. You're going to see a lot of kids who committed early, and now every school that has an interest in that kid realizes, well, look, man, if we can't do $250,000, we don't even need to bother. But if we can put together $350,000, I can go knock on that kid's door, and that'll change his recruitment. I think there's a sense that there's a lot of that's about to take place. That the initial bottom of negotiations has been established for every kid in the country that's committed. Every school that didn't get their commitment but knows that they want them knows what they have to do. The other thing is, golly, I'll come back to it, Chad. My brain just did a malfunction.
Fair enough. Adam says we should call it a slow flip. Adam, I don't like the word slow being in. What about reset? What about resetting? If you back out and then you go in, you reset? No, because it's got to make it sound. That doesn't sound cool. Right. I know it's got to be a cool phrase, but it can't be flip because you didn't directly flip.
What about roundabout? We got a couple flips. We got some commits.
That sounds like a play Newt Rockney would make up. That sounds like a play Newt Rockney would have made up. Let's run the roundabout. We're going to run the roundabout, and then it's going to be 4-0, and we think we can get them. 2 safeties.
Hey, did you see that? Was it the Chargers and the Broncos and the Seahawks yesterday? Did you see that mess?
I did. 2 safeties in one game.
That was 5 points in 2 different quarters. It was 5-3, and then I saw that it was 10-9, and I went, "Well, wait a minute. The only way it could be 10-9 is if they got another safety. They must have there must have been something must have happened.
Yeah,
and the safety got canceled. So I went digging through the box score, and I was like, "Holy crap! They got 2 safeties and 2 field goals, and they're up 10-9. When was the last time that ever happened?"
It's fantastic. Catch, one of my favorite dad jokes on earth is when I was a kid, my dad, anytime a game would get weird like that with a safety and it'd be like 5-3 or whatever, he would always say something about, well, I hope their pitching holds up. And I just thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I still say it. Anytime I see 2 safeties or once a safety, well, let's hope the pitching holds up. Yeah, it's fantastic. All right. We have super chats lined up, including our man Cody Carpentier, who's just trying to slowly make it rain. We already had $1. This is a different dollar.
Cody's the guy that goes to the strip club and just occasionally walks by the stage and drops a single on the floor and then walks back to his seat.
That is it. The man, he's on a budget. He is a stripper fan on a budget. There's nothing wrong with that. And once again, Sandman, we must reiterate, this is not how it works. You can type that all you want, and you can put money emojis. That's not a super chat. In case you thought it was. We're just letting you know.
I mean,
hope you had a great trip.
If you really want to send nearly $400, we can literally provide you a step-by-step flow of instructions to accomplish that.
Yes, we will get that done. We have some other super chats ready to roll. Before we do that, Catch, why don't you tell the good folks about My Perfect Franchise and what Andy can do for them, like if they're, I don't know, Michigan football, and maybe they need some help.
Are you like Chad and you hate your boss? Sucks. Hate that guy that cashes checks. Makes me feel like I'm not important. Makes me, I just, the sound of his voice makes me want to punch the wall. Hey, man, it might be time to either, if you can't diversify your portfolio because you don't have a portfolio, it's time to get a portfolio. And if you got a portfolio that isn't quite at the level yet that's going to allow you to quit that job that you hate, that's where Andy steps in. He can help you diversify. He can help you build. And he's going to do it. He's got like this fancy algorithm thing. I don't know what it is, but he's going to profile you, inspect you, find out what your interests are, what your passions are, and he's going to help point you into your perfect franchise, which technically I guess I should just say My Perfect Franchise because that's the name of the company, but you know what I mean. It's going to be yours. And eventually by being yours, it'll be mine, but only mine because I'm becoming you, if that makes any sense at all. Look, call him 404-973-9901, email, text, whichever you prefer, and say, help me change my life a little bit, diversify or build. Just get me the hell out of what's happening right now. Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. There you go.
I know there was a couple folks on Orange Bloods that wanted me to contact Andy during the post-game show, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Damn.
Yeah, it did happen. All right, let's get to some super chats here. I just kind of like this one, Catch. Just kind of a nice general super chat everybody can get into. $5 from S Roan 45. How bad is the OU offense?
Chad, did you watch that on Saturday?
I did not actively watch it. I recorded it. I have it to go back through. I went through Oklahoma State, Arkansas last night. Actually, I'm in the process of going through that, and I'm going to go through Oklahoma. I haven't watched it yet, though, but I'm going to. But I didn't see it actively, no.
It was legitimately awful.
It felt that way. When I peeked in, it didn't feel good.
Because the thing is, I tuned in. Oklahoma didn't look great in the opener, but they beat the hell out of, who did they play? Troy or
Temple.
Temple. That's right. And it was like, the offensive line didn't block well, but they still beat the hell out of them. So I kind of expected to tune in on Saturday. They're playing Houston, a Houston team that got Jalen Catalon the week before.
Yes.
For those of you that don't remember who Jalen Catalon is, he transferred from Arkansas to Texas last year, was expected to be the big thing at safety, wasn't, transferred to UNLV, and then in week one against Houston, he had 2 interceptions, 1 for a pick 6, and UNLV went into Houston and just beat them down. So I'm thinking, look, this game's not going to tell me anything about Oklahoma, but I'm going to get to see some of these young guys show out. I'm going to get to see, what's this transfer from Purdue look like? And Jackson Arnold, former 5-star, let's see what he looks like. And Taylor Tatum, the 5-star running back from Longview, who's a freshman. He had like 6 or 7 carries in the opener. Maybe I'll get a little look, see what he looks like. Well, first of all, they couldn't beat Houston bad enough to get Taylor Tatum in the game. I don't think he had any carries. If he did, he only had 1. Jackson Arnold's not good. And the problem is he's not good. They're not running the ball well, Chad. And their best receiver averages 5.9 yards per catch.
Jesus.
And that's on 15 catches. That's not like, well, their best receivers only caught 3 passes
right
in the first 2 games, and it's kind of flukish. And
there's a rotation. No.
15 catches. Now, granted, against Temple, I think 9 of them were touchdowns. But he's averaging 5.9 yards per reception. And it speaks to, well, look, it's what Sark just said. I feel like every time Oklahoma completes a pass, its receiver is standing still and trying to give Jackson Arnold a target. And then when they catch the ball, they get immediately tackled. They're not getting any yak. They're not catching the ball on the move. They're very much playing in a phone booth, very close to the line of scrimmage. And let me read you what Cody Carpentier had in his article. Good job today, by the way, Cody. I absolutely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If you missed it, it says OU fans in shambles, and it's. I mean, if you hate Oklahoma or Oklahoma losing or not looking good provides you something the opposite of misery, then you definitely want to go check that out. This was Oklahoma's last 8 possessions on offense.
Mm-hmm.
Punt, 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 interception, punt, missed field goal, punt, punt.
You forgot one thing, Catch. Victory.
I mean, they won.
They did win.
But boy, did they win. Look, we know Oklahoma will get better. They can't get worse. What? It'll be their next 9 possessions? One more punt? I don't know. I'm not selling all of my Jackson Arnold stock. But I tell you what, man. There's a freshman quarterback that played for Florida this week that made his first career start, 5-star guy. And he looked like a 5-star guy this weekend. He looked exactly like you would want a guy who's young playing quarterback early. Why is Jackson Arnold not looking the part? By the way, why is Connor Wigman not looking the part? I don't know, man. But why is Lagway looking the part? I don't know. There's some interesting things going on there. But to answer the question, Esron 45, pretty bad right now. Not good. Not good, Bob.
Not good. Esron, thank you for that one. We also, let me make sure, see where the next one is, because we have multiple super chats. How about Tracy's? $5 super chat from Tracy through 2 games. What are your thoughts on a Texas running back still going for 1,000 yards? Thoughts on Trey Moore through 2 games as well. So 1,000-yard rusher and Trey Moore.
My thoughts on the running backs in 1,000 yards is relax for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think we're not looking at Jaden Blue and not thinking that he's productive. He's been really good. His volume has been somewhat limited. I think you'll see Jaden Blue's numbers in the run game spike up a little bit now that we hit the UTSA, La Monroe, Mississippi State portion of the schedule. I think you'll see those numbers climb. And I would also say, how many games do we think Texas is going to play in? Because if the answer is 13, 14, 15.
Got to be 14. Got to be 14 at least, right?
You think, right?
Got to be 14.
If that's the case, well, here, let me get my trusty calculator out.
Even if you don't, I mean, if they go to the SEC title game, that's 13 plus whatever the game is, that's 14. If
we were in 12 games, you've got to rush for 83 yards per game to get to 1,000.
Yeah.
But if it's 14, so let's say SEC championship game and 1 playoff game, now you need to average 71. And I think you get where I'm going with this. If you play 15 games, which is not out of the realm of possibilities for this Texas team, then he's got to rush for 66. And then you start looking at Jaden Blue early in the season and you go, well, he's not averaging 66, but he's not that far from that either. He's been like a 50 guy so far. So I would say just relax. I think as long as Jaden Blue stays healthy, he's going to get 1,000 yards rushing. And I think he's going to be aided by the fact that he's going to play a bunch of games if he stays healthy. Trey Moore, he's not the playmaker yet that we all thought that he would be, but it's early. Look, remember Jalen Ford 2 years ago had a donut hole of contribution in his first game of the season and then ended up being an All-American. I'm not saying that that's what Trey Moore is going to do. I'm just saying that we've seen the sample size is really small, and I get the sense that they're okay with the way Trey Moore has performed so far, even if it hasn't showed up in the stats yet. Like Barron Sorrell almost got to the quarterback 3 times. He was credited with 3 quarterback hits or pressures. So that tells you he's close to getting there, but he didn't get a guy on the ground. And I think we're waiting for all of the ends. I mean, you could say the same thing about Ethan Burke. You could say the same thing about Colton Vasek. They're all playing, but none have had flashy plays yet. Let's wait and see. If he doesn't start playing better, Colin Simmons is probably going to take his playing time, or some of it anyway. We've certainly seen Simmons get some taste of pass rush over the course of the first 2 games. Nothing makes me think that that's declining. He's really talented. You can see that speed and that quickness converging into closing into the quarterback incredibly quickly. I mean, you could just see all of the things that makes him exciting with the naked eye. So I think that, Trey Moore's got to play better, but I wouldn't panic.
Thank you for that, Tracy. We also had, hang on. Just want to make sure there's another super chat that I had missed. All right. Back to the recruiting conversation. There's a couple on recruiting here. Let's start with Thomas. $5 on a super chat. Recruiting is taking off right now. Really solid shot at the number 1 class this year when everything's said and done. That's interesting aspirations there, Thomas. All right, so it gets to number 4, Catch, with the stuff we just discussed. Myron Charles and the flip. We talked about Hilson, sort of maybe lurking is the right word there, decommitting from Florida State and opening things up. So what has to happen between now and December for it to go from 4 to number 1?
There's a pretty big gap between 1 and 4 in the rivals rankings. And this is based on me remembering what I saw on Saturday. But let me pull up the team rankings and let me take a look at it.
So it's Ohio State, Bama, and LSU ahead of them right now for everybody that doesn't have the list in front of them.
Those Texas are the 3. Is sitting at 2,546. There's no chance that Texas is going to finish with the number 1 class in the country. Ohio State has 5 5-stars committed right now.
Damn.
Texas has 2. So even adding Hilson and Michael Terry and let's say another 5-star whose name we don't even know right now.
What if they add Boateng?
I don't think it gets them to number 1.
Okay.
I think it would get them to number 2.
Okay.
And I think the difference between Texas and Alabama and LSU is pretty close. They were to get Hilson to commit. I think from a math standpoint, maybe it would make it very close between Texas and LSU at 3 if you add Hilson. Georgia, with their recruiting class right now, has almost a 700-point lead on Texas. I mean, their recruiting class is pretty sick as things stand. I suppose if Ohio State had a decommit or 2 and Texas added, then you could see Ohio State go down and Texas go up. That would be the only way I think Texas could pull it off.
Thomas, thank you for that super chat. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on that recruiting ranking. 4 is where Texas is sitting right now after the events of the weekend. Speaking of recruiting, Catch, here's one more chance, $5 and a penny. Thank you for that. One more. Are there any current commits we should be worried about flipping to other schools? So any concern about a loss with a flip?
I mean, it's usually the bottom of the recruiting class. Nobody's jumping to mind. But if Texas, no, I don't think there's anybody right now that Texas should truly be worried about losing. You could make a case that either of those. James Simon seems pretty locked into Texas. I mean, you could always look at the out-of-state guys and wonder if they'll change their minds. You could always look at the guys who have deep positions in front of them, and if you're asking the question, how are they going to get on the field? Usually that's a question. And so I would point to the running back position as an example. Let's say Jaden Blue does perform well enough to go pro. Just give him the benefit of the doubt that happens. Then the two freshman running backs in the 2025 class are in a situation where they'll return Baxter, they'll return Gibson, they'll return Clark coming off of an injury, they'll return Trey Wisner. So 4 guys come back if Blue goes pro, 5 come back if Blue stays, and then you show up and you're number 6 and number 7 on campus the day that you show up, or number 5 and number 6. I mean, you could make a case that if one of those guys said, man, playing right away is the most important thing that I care about, then maybe they would second guess their decisions a little bit. But as of right now, nobody just jumps out of mind. Cade Phillips was an obvious one because he had always loved LSU. The day he left his Texas official visit, Cade Phillips told Orange Bloods that he thought LSU was still ahead of Texas. Now, he ended up committing to Texas, but then he flips to LSU, and it shouldn't have been a big surprise. There's nobody else that I think of quite like that.
One more chance. Thank you for that super chat. If you want to throw us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list. Phil, I see your super chat, and we will definitely get to you. I will also remind everybody about AV Consultations. How was that first weekend in the NFL? Did you enjoy it? Did you get your octo boxes and your quad boxes and everything going with the Red Zone channel, and you loved it? Or did you have that moment where you realized, oh, wait, I got YouTube TV, I've got NFL Sunday ticket, this is badass, but when I go into the quad box, the quad is not exactly the size I thought it would be. You probably need a bigger screen. This is the place that can get it for you. 255-8678 AV Consultations. Let them buy that new screen for you. They can get a better deal than anybody else can. Plus, they'll make sure it's all hooked up right. They'll make sure it goes into the room in the most efficient way. And they may think of a lot of things that you weren't even thinking of in terms of how to get everything set up. 255-8678 or avconsultations.com. If you're a Longhorn football fan and you watched on Saturday and you don't sense that this could be something truly special that you want to see in badass HD, I can't really help you, but AV Consultations can. 255-8678. All right, Texas and UTSA, 6 o'clock on Saturday, as we mentioned earlier. Back to Ann Arbor with Phil. $5 super chat. How many Texas fans do you think were singing the Eyes of Texas post game at the Big House? I heard an estimate of 15,000. I was impressed. Catch, we always talk about how the winner in Dallas gets to run the stadium and then ultimately, run the city for that weekend. By the end of that game, if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm headed out. I do not want to stay and witness the Texas fans enjoying it. So I'm guessing that there was a nice group of Longhorn fans that got to sing the Eyes and look at some empty seats. That had to be nice.
Yeah, and I think 15,000 is probably a solid estimate. I would probably go a little bit more than that. I don't know that I'd go all the way to 20. I know it might seem like quibbling. I don't know that I think Texas had 1/5 of the crowd, but I think they were definitely better than 1/10. So somewhere in between there. I think it was slightly north of 15,000. Texas traveled incredibly well. You could see it at the Dallas Browns game last night, yesterday, a lot of Texas fans went to that game. Mm-hmm. Sonny Nelson from Orange Bloods went to the Lions game last night. Yeah, Texas just dominated the Midwest this weekend. Texas did itself proud. That's, I think if you were to ask Michigan fans today, a couple of days removed from it, what did you think of Texas fans? I think they'd probably give them 5-star reviews. A bunch of people showed up. They were really loud. Their team was really good. And you know what we haven't heard? Didn't see any videos in social media of Texas and Michigan fans fighting or anything. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, thank goodness.
there was, as far as I could tell, it was issue-less. I didn't hear about anything.
Yeah.
So,
and despite all the jokes last week, and I made half of them, I didn't hear about anything burning. I didn't hear about, Michigan
that's
fans.
an Ohio State thing, man.
It is, and I'm glad. So I'll give the volleyball clap to Michigan. That's how to be a blue blood fan. That's how to do it. If somebody walks in and beats you like that, especially like that, I mean, that wasn't some late safety. That wasn't some field goal that went off the crossbar. Like, that's pretty definitive. You shake their hand and you tell them to have a safe trip home, and that's exactly what I would hope Michigan fans did. Phil, thank you for the super chat. That cleans us off with super chats for now. So if you want to get one in, it will go right to the top of the list. Catch, I saw a question earlier on a chat I wanted you to get to because you were discussing Oklahoma earlier, and you said you watched that Houston game, correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Did you see any of A&M and McNeese State?
No.
Okay. So a couple games of Oklahoma, one game of the Aggies. We've had multiple people asking this. Whose offense is worse, Oklahoma or A&M?
I mean, I'm going to say Oklahoma, and I'll tell you the reasoning.
Okay.
Quarterback. And Connor Wigman is the 14th. He's got a 101 college efficiency rating. Pick the worst Texas quarterback that you can think of in the modern era. I mean, I don't mean to call out names, but you know who you guys think were the worst quarterbacks. That's lower than Connor Weigman through 2 games is not just lower than any of the worst Texas quarterbacks. He's worse by like a lot. What the hell, Chad? What the hell? I'm asking you, Chad, what the hell?
Yeah, there's a lot going on with that team right now. I mean, yeah, and I did sit through the McNeese State game. I say sadly, it's just you don't learn a lot. Watching a game like that is like eating a bunch of cotton candy all day. Like, it can make you happy in the short term, but you don't learn much. It's a very empty calorie kind of game. But Catch, they've got to get him integrated into the offense. They're not doing a great job of that. But there's also a basic thing with A&M right now. They ain't blocking super well, and they don't have a great running back.
But neither is Oklahoma, and that's why.
Well, that's where I think there's I think that comparison's there too. I don't think either team is blocking super well. I don't think either team has a badass running back. Is that fair to say? I didn't watch OU play Houston yet. I'll admit I haven't really dug in.
I gotta maybe Taylor Tatum, but
okay,
who's not even in the rotation right now at Oklahoma. So
because right now between Daniels and, of course, Reuben Owens got hurt, but between Daniels and Moss, they are performing at a level, Catch, to where when my dad told me what to look for in the McNeese game, he told me to watch Terry Bussey as a running back. Like that, they ran, and you know what Terry Bussey did against McNeese State? They ran him on one big jet sweep, and he got like a 65-yard touchdown.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and he had a couple other plays, but he's a receiver. Like, they're playing him as kind of as more of a receiver.
They used him like Texas used Ryan Wingo on Saturday. He got his one play.
Exactly. But when my dad's eyes saw it, he was looking for a running back so much that's what he was drawn to. Like, oh my God, a guy that's actually running free and not being tackled. There's a running back. In a way it was. So I think that's all contributing to the issues with Connor Wigman. They did look at receivers more on Saturday than they did certainly against Notre Dame. But yeah, they've got some stuff to figure out. No doubt about it. $20 from Hooked on the Horns. We have now won 8 consecutive home games dating back to 22 Baylor, 8 consecutive road games dating back to 22 K-State, and 8 consecutive regular season games dating back to the Houston game last year. The Houston game last? Huh?
Yeah.
Consecutive. Oh, I see, because of I get you. Starting with right after OU. Okay. There you go. A lot of 8s. Crazy 8s from Hooked on the Horns. Catch, you brought up the 8 road that 8 road game string, which is big. And it was brought up today for Sark that Quinn and Texas have been really good on the road for a while now, including two big statement wins in Tuscaloosa and now Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 of that 8-game road winning streak. 3 of those are against top 15 teams. K-State was 13 or 14 back in 2022. And if you'll remember, Texas had been awful on the road under Sarkisian. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but it was awful. I mean, it was 1-7 or 2-6 or something. It was just not good. And since that night, which was a really good Quinn Ewers night, because if you go back to the road game before that at Oklahoma State, that was not a good performance by Quinn. That was not a good performance by the Longhorns in the way that they managed the game, how they played in the second half, how Ewers played, how much faith and confidence the coaching staff had in Ewers. They've beaten Kansas State. They've beaten Alabama last year in a top 5 showdown, and then they beat Michigan on Saturday. And I want to continue to point out that whatever Michigan's not doing on offense right now and still trying to figure out, that is a defense full of future NFL guys, 6 or 7 at a minimum. So, and a couple of first rounders in there to boot. Those guys will have their film played on the day of the draft next year, and it won't be any Texas game highlights. So, I think the winning streak on the road right now is the most impressive thing. It's very Vince Young-like. Back and look at Vince when he took over after the 2003 Oklahoma game. He never loses on the road. Never lost on the road as a starter. Had a couple of scares, but never lost.
Yeah, there was some of those early slips, and then they recover. Obviously, that's not what this Texas team has looked like.
No, and quite frankly, it feels maybe like Quinn's been his best on the road. Because I think 2 of his best games in his career right now are the Alabama game from a year ago and obviously the Michigan game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Maybe he just hasn't had the platform of those level of games at home yet. His last 2 losses, both neutral site games, which when you looked at Vince Young's resume, that was what got him as a starter as well. Neutral site, Washington State in 2003. Neutral site Oklahoma in 2004. But that was it. As a starter, VY never lost on the road. That's not Quinn Ewers. He did lose a couple of games on the road early in his career, but he's at 8 straight right now. And, bodes really well for a team. If you think, as I did going into the year, that this team will eventually drop a game and it'll probably be a road game, right now, the best thing Texas has going for it that would neutralize just the idea that will happen is a really mature football team and a quarterback that's playing really well on the road consistently, not occasionally. The next time they go on the road, I think we'll think to ourselves, the best version of Quinn Ewers will likely show up. That's what Texas has been getting by and large over the course of the last 2 years.
Yeah, they look very comfortable in that road situation on Saturday. Blake, I did see your super chat. Thank you for alerting me to that one. Or I did miss it the first time, but I grabbed it once you told me. Thank you. $5 super chat from Blake. Do you still see Arkansas, Kentucky, or Florida as a slip-up game after 2 weeks? Do you think Fasusi, Moore, and Bo Davis regret their moves? Oh, that's an interesting combo. I thought that was a mistype a second, but I think I think Blake meant that.
Let's start first part of that. Chad, you still see Arkansas, Kentucky, or Florida as a possible slip-up game?
I think each of those games has an ingredient that could make it a slip-up, Blake. Kentucky falling right between Arkansas and A&M. We've talked about that. Maybe a little bit of an emotional dump in Fayetteville, then you're trying to come back. The Fayetteville game speaks for itself. Plus, again, Arkansas is off the bye. Texas is not, and it's an 11 a.m. kick. I'm going to keep saying that part because it kind of sounds important. And then the Florida game, Florida is coming off of the cocktail party, but that's still a home game, and I believe that one's already been set for an 11 a.m. kick as well, which is weird. So, and then who knows if Lagway keeps playing well, that's a game that it could feel a lot different by the time we get there. So I think all three of those have the ingredients where, yeah, it's, I mean, you got to be paying attention. What did Kirby Smart tell us, Jeff, at the SEC Media Days? That the humility is just a week away in the SEC. Kirby goes to Kentucky this week, and no one's going to pay attention because they think Kentucky sucks because South Carolina just beat them. But guess what? I guarantee you Kirby Smart is going to spend all week flipping out on his guys to go to Lexington and not lay an egg because Kentucky can beat Georgia. They can absolutely do it. I'm not saying they're gonna, but they can do it if you don't pay attention. So it's all three of them, I think, had that opportunity catch.
I totally agree. So much so that I don't need to do like a spiel on it at all, other than to say that a slip-up game doesn't have to be a loss, right?
Sure.
I mean, you know, if any of those teams play Texas below double digits, I mean, double digits, we might look at that as a bit of a slip-up game. You know, it's funny. We were talking about that 2005 team, and it feels like the A&M game was a little bit of a slip-up game because Vince loses the Heisman. But Texas still won that game by double digits.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. Like, that team was so damn good that the slip was 11, I think. Was it 40-29 and then 11 points?
Yeah, it was it was a weird game. They had to come from behind. It was a little nervy in the first quarter, but ultimately they won that game comfortably. But it was still a bit of a slip-up game. Even all these years later, we still kind of refer to it. It is viewed as the game that lost Vince Young the Heisman because at the last impression of Vince going into the, late in the season before the conference championship games, he just didn't have a real showcase performance against A&M. He saved it for USC, which in the end, thank you, Vince. I mean, all things being equal, they were able to get by A&M without it. He saved it for USC. It worked out just fine the way that it went down.
Blake, thank you for that. By the way, Ketch, since you just mentioned Texas and USC, and looking at 05 and kind of making the comparison, from the moment they played Ohio State that year to the end of the year, they played 2 top 10s. Texas Tech was in the top 10 that year. Oklahoma was not. Remember, that was an unranked Oklahoma team they stepped on. And then, of course, USC. But think about the big difference this year. They know they have not just a team. Right now, they're the number 1 team. They're on the schedule. But Ketch, that's the only top 10 right now. That's the only top 10 team currently ranked that's on Texas's schedule. Obviously, you're going to get to big ranked teams if you get to the playoff. And if you get to Atlanta, you're going to play a ranked team as well. But right now, there's just that one other top 10 team. So we'll kind of see how it plays out.
I think the question of, are there slip-up games? Yes. Do I see games on the schedule after 2 weeks where I think Texas loses that game? Beyond the obvious Georgia one, it's hard to point to any team on that schedule at this point other than Georgia and say with a straight face, the team we've seen so far beats this Texas team. Those teams may all get there. That includes Oklahoma. That includes Texas A&M. That includes even Arkansas, right? We can paint a picture of, when they go into Fayetteville, it'll be Vietnam, and the people will be on fire, and we can paint the picture. But if we just look at it from a football standpoint, and I'm going to raise you in a second. I know we need to go into buy or sell. I'll tell you what, I'll hold my question for you post buy or sell.
Okay.
Because I kind of like my buy or sell questions. Don't know, and I got them into the system this today. So
look at you.
I'm giving a volleyball clap.
Well done. That's well done. Well done. All right. Well, let's go ahead and buy or sell. You want to go first? They're there.
I'll go first.
All right.
I don't think any of my questions are like all-time great questions, but I think they're good questions.
Let history be the judge of that.
Who knows? We may remember your answer to my hotter than prime on number 5 forever. We'll see. Buy or sell number 1. This is the week Silas Bolden gets into the end zone.
It's got to be a buy. The committee meeting went very well last week. I stood on the table. I screamed and yelled. I thought he'd be the secret weapon. I talked about a touchdown against Michigan. Didn't happen. This is the week 11 will get into the end zone. It may be like 38-3 when he does it, but I'm going to say it happens. Bye.
That whole wide receiver rotation discussion feels a lot different today than it did even a week ago. And a week ago, we could point to the numbers from game one and go, hey, guys, there's a whole lot of Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond and not much of anybody else.
Yep. We talked about the rotation would probably tighten up in bigger games. It did, and they still dominate. So great news overall. But then if you're Jonte Cook or Silas Bolden, you got to have some patience immediately.
No doubt. Buy or sell number 2. Quinn Ewers is the front runner for the Heisman.
It's got to be a buy. I mean,
you hate to be that guy in September.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You'd kind of rather be the lurker in this situation. And I guess if I need to go back and look at exactly what Beck's numbers looked like against Clemson, because he's the first guy that would pop in my head. And I love the fact that these guys are going to go head up in Austin, because I think they may be those two guys on that day. But right now, after what we just saw, I think it's Quinn. I think that's a buy, because it's not like he went to Ann Arbor and handed off, 50 times or something. There were a few more passes. I think it was 36-32 pass to run. He controlled the game. He had so many great throws. Yeah, I think it's him. Buy.
Buy or sell number 3 going to the NFL. Our Cowboys gave you a 10 out of 10 opening game performance yesterday.
Man, gotta be a buy. Never really have to worry. Punt, return, touchdown. Get to laugh at Cleveland Brown fans. Constantly thinking of Deshaun Watson massage jokes throughout the game. Yes, 10 out of 10. Never had to worry. Dak gets his money. 1-0. Never apologize for winning an NFL game. Bye.
Can I give you my proposal?
Sure.
At the end of this, I do not require a trophy. I do not require a championship or a banner or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I propose that the Dallas Cowboys be allowed to play the Cleveland Browns every week in a 17-game season, like the Globetrotters used to play the Washington Generals. Like, can we make the Cleveland Browns our Washington Generals? We just go 17-0. We have good times. And then when the season's over, we don't go to the playoffs.
Catch, I love the idea. I did call Goodell this morning and ask. He said no. I tried. Trust me, I tried. I had the same thought you did. I turned to my wife halfway through the game and said, is there any way we can sneak into that division of y'all's? Would they let us in the AFC North? We don't want to play y'all or the Ravens.
Yeah, no. I wanted the Browns every week.
And then I told her, I was like, look, we'll just play the teams that wear orange. We'll take a little Bengals. We'll take some Bengals every once in a while if you let us play the Browns. Please.
Oh, man, I enjoyed that yesterday. Buy or sell number 4. Kendrick Lamar is going to perform at the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show. The NFL should have picked Lil Wayne, but the game being in New Orleans.
That's good logic. I'll buy that. Also, as much as I love him and he is such a talent, Kendrick Lamar is not a Super Bowl halftime guy to me. Like, it'll be like his performances have really elevated over the last few years. And every time I see him at like an award show or something, it's big, but it's also serious. It's Kendrick Lamar. Like, he doesn't feel Super Bowl.
So here's the thing though, Chad. They get Not Like Us the year it came out.
Right. Yeah. For the people that are into all that stuff, I guess that's what matters. But I'm going to buy your idea. And because Lil Wayne's also more fun than Kendrick Lamar.
You're right. I do think it's quite a coup in the NFL that the song of the summer, the song of the year so far, they'll have that guy performing. It's a very timely, you get Kendrick Lamar in 10 years and all of the stuff that you just said, I think really pops to a head. It's like,
plus,
is that a fun hang? Maybe not.
But here's the thing I like about it, and I can't wait to see Kendrick perform, is I want one of two things out of the Super Bowl halftime. I want a performer that makes old people uncomfortable, or that makes young people uncomfortable.
Dude,
One of the two.
he's gonna perform about Drake being a pedophile. That's going to happen.
Old, like stuck in their ways people that don't like a lot of music are going to go crazy and call TV stations and ask for it to be turned off. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be one gigantic pile hop on Drake as well. And we can't lose sight of the fact that when the halftime show pops around, the entire world is going to watch him perform that song.
That's the other reason I love it. I love, for all of you that are into this whole soap opera thing and into the fact that we're old enough now, Catch, to watch a possible like diss track battle find its way to the Super Bowl halftime. Like what?
That's the year that it came, again, I can't stress it enough. That's in like a 12-month window of the year that it came out. It's you could make the claim maybe this is the most timely Super Bowl halftime act ever.
It's incredible. It's going to take me 10 minutes to explain it to my parents. It's going to be fantastic.
And finally, we got a prime on prime hotter than.
All right.
And I'm taking you back to the 90s.
Okay.
This is where I think this discussion lives.
Okay.
Prime on prime hotter than Janet Jackson. Hotter than Aaliyah.
Oh God. Boy, that's this big time game right here. Oh man. Anwar just showed me the video the other day of Janet like mounting the guy on the stage where she brings a fan on stage and ties him to a bed and performs the song. And it's incredible. Aaliyah just drop dead gorgeous. Oh man. Prime on prime hotter than.
Think about Janet topless on the beach.
Yeah, I will
doing the what is it? All I think about you when I think about you.
Just from the amount of like material that I've kind of got to think about and the over. I'm gonna buy Janet. I'm gonna go with Janet. Yeah. It's a hell of a battle. But I'm going to go with Janet because there's a sultriness and a sexiness and that look in Janet's eye. I'm not saying Aaliyah didn't have a look. I'm not saying that. I'm going to go with Janet.
I was going to do that thing where if you went Aaliyah, I was going to tell you that you're wrong.
You were going to lecture me? I had a lecture coming?
I was going to give you a question and let you answer it. And then I was going to tell you that your answer is invalid and that my answer is the valid answer.
Here's why you suck. This is why what you just said.
Janet, That's the Way Love Goes is top shelf. That is also, I was listening to that song on the way to get my ears pierced back in the summer of 92.
Look at you. Also, just a weird comment, but Aaliyah for me, maybe like Mount Rushmore of any hot woman in a bandana ever.
No, like the thing about Aaliyah.
Oh my God. When she would just throw something like that on her, she looked incredible.
Her swag is like all-time great swag.
So good.
She literally in the 90s, her swag is sex, right? Like more than she was actually hot. The swag in like every photo that you ever see of her makes her look sexier than she actually is, I think, in reality. Janet in reality was all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah, Aaliyah, man, one of the most tragic, preventable deaths in the history of music. That is so not a rock and roll way to die. You can't die because the plane's too heavy. That's just nuts. Throw some luggage off the plane and save the woman. All right, Catch, here we go. Let's go back to Ann Arbor. Buy or sell number one. The most impressive thing about Saturday's win for Texas for you was Sark's play calling.
Sell, because in the second half, they got conservative.
Okay.
So I still think it's Quinn. I think, and Sark said it today, he didn't even have a pass that even remotely was in danger. You know, there was a one miscommunication along the sideline. We talked about that on Saturday where he and Bond just aren't on the same page and the ball's not really thrown anywhere near Bond, but Bond doesn't look like he knows. Like, that's probably the one throw or play that you'd look at and you go, well, that wasn't good, but it wasn't almost an interception. It just wasn't anywhere close to being a connection. Yeah. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. It was just an incredibly adult performance from a guy that, was still, I think he's had adult performances, but I think it needed to happen again. He needed to redo that, and he did. I thought he was great.
All right, Cats, let's go back in time. Buy or sell number 2. In 2005, Texas scored 51 against the next 2 opponents after Ohio State. Neither of the opponents scored 21. We'll see at least that against UTSA and ULM.
Buy. Yeah. Something better than 50-20 in both games.
All righty. Let's go to it's great minds think alike. Buy or sell number 3. You enjoyed watching the Cowboys blast Cleveland yesterday.
I did, and I really enjoyed watching the Cowboys defense. Shout out to former Orange Bloods NIL star DeMarvion Overshone. Damn, boy!
How about that for closing speed? Woo! Closed in on Deshaun Watson faster than the investigations did.
Oh,
Boom!
Much faster than the investigations. Let me read you his stat line. This is first game back from an ACL injury.
Yeah.
11 tackles, a sack, another tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. And his first tackle of the game was another tackle for loss that the Cowboys decided to accept a 5-yard penalty. I didn't understand that. My nitpick of the game was, why would you let Cleveland have 1 at 1st and 15 instead of 2nd and 13 or 2nd and 12?
Yeah, I didn't understand that one either.
Why'd you take away my man's first career tackle for loss? Demo was great. I thought Michael Parsons was going to have about 8 sacks in that game. And then it turned out he didn't even have more than Lawrence did. Every Sunday, please.
Every Sunday would be great. Let me ask this, just again, overreacting question after week 1. After that game, do you think you can fully give me an assessment on the whole Mike Zimmer hire, or did they just play Cleveland and we got to wait?
I still think this is like a 9-8 team.
Okay.
10-7. I don't think they really got better, but just let me enjoy yesterday for yesterday.
I will. Trust me. I'm trying to do the same thing because, by the way, you know who they play in week 2, don't you?
They play the Saints.
A team that just scored 47. What the hell? Not supposed to do that in the NFL.
And we're sometimes better on the road than we are at home. There's something weird about the Cowboys where sometimes playing at home, it feels like the other teams has louder fans. It's just, I don't know.
Everybody shows up for the artwork and the clubs inside the stadium and all that stuff. Yeah. All right, Catch. Back to the Longhorns. Buy or sell number 4. Texas should have been number 1 in the AP poll.
So I'm not thinking down on anybody that thinks that Georgia is rightfully number 1. You could make the case that Texas is number 1, but you can easily make the case that Georgia is also number 1. So I think they should absolutely have been number 2 at a minimum, and that's where they are. That's probably the only should involving Texas in the AP poll that I had this week.
Did you happen to notice, Catch, that one voter didn't vote last week that voted this week? Did you notice that?
Not. No.
63 votes this week, 62 last week. Whoever you are, sir or madam, let's get that vote in. Please. 4 first place
All votes matter. Come on, guys.
All votes matter. Interesting, Ohio State got more first place votes than Texas, but they sit in 3rd. Right behind the Longhorns. And finally, Catch, let's go with it's not a hotter than, but it kind of is. It's a more impressive discussion based on the husband. Rachel Hunter is 55 years old today. Rod Stewart marrying her is more impressive than David Copperfield tricking Claudia Schiffer.
Oh, sell. David Copperfield getting Claudia Schiffer. That dude does magic tricks. Rod Stewart's a rock star.
It's fair. That's fair.
I mean, Rod Stewart's not my favorite rock star, but he's a honest to God rock star.
He is one.
When she went home to tell her mom who she was marrying, he's a rock star. Claudia Schiffer had to go home and tell her mom, I'm marrying a man that pulls rabbits out of hats.
He made the Statue of Liberty disappear. What? Tell him to give it back before the wedding. Okay.
You know, by the way, if you're a woman or a man, would you want to be married to a magician? Because couldn't they just make all their dirty shit disappear? Got a woman in bed with me. Look, honey, over there. Look back. Nobody's there.
Plus, it would just be a lot of this, I would think, just all the time, right? You'd get tired of magician hands. Everything would be magician hands. Honey, I did the dishes.
I saw you. You were with her. Man. She was naked.
There's no woman here. That's not a hotel receipt. That's not a car receipt.
Now you see it.
What are you talking
about? Now you see nothing.
What are you talking about? It's like, all right, we'll stop with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be married to that. You couldn't trust your eyes.
Yeah. You know who took the dog for a walk today? I did. All right. Okay. Fine, David. Jeez. All right. Let's see if there are any super chats that have come in while you and I were entertaining the masses. Hang on. There's one. Oh, Barb's 10 is back in. Hang on. Barb's 10. Barb's 10. Hope the family had a good weekend, Barb's, and we thank you for sharing your story. Rest in peace to Dennis from over the weekend. How the hell did Jermaine Dupri lock down Janet?
I know the answer to this.
All right. Tell us.
He's funny.
Sense of humor.
Sense of humor sometimes is, I think it played a huge role in me being able to get my wife. And I think Jermaine Dupri got to be a funny motherfucker, man. He just has to be.
Catch, there are moments.
All.
Yeah. There are moments.
Every short dude. Why? He has to be the most. He's got to be like. I'm thinking of Pulp Fiction, where whether that when Jules was like, "Will I eat a pig?" He'd eat. Not, you know, it had to be a charming pig. Kind of
Right.
feel that way with Jermaine Dupri. He had to be charming for her to marry him.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So catch when you mentioned it with your wife. So. I'm hoping that was an ingredient.
Jermaine Dupri is 5'4".
Yeah. I'm hoping that's an ingredient for me as well. One of the things I listen for are the moments when I'll say something and my wife still laughs after all these years. And my daughter will say to my wife, don't encourage him. Don't encourage him. That's the moment where I know that I'm still there. You know what I mean? Still there. Still got to be funny.
Still got it.
Yeah. Cause at damn near 50 years old, if what else I'm working with is this, we got to have some funny now. Come on.
You got that Fozzie the Bear, like.
Yeah, if I don't have Waka Waka, what do I have?
Janet is 5'4", and she married a 5'4" Jermaine Dupri. That dude gets posted up in basketball games by Kevin Hart.
Damn. They could just both fit in the carry-on when they go on airplanes. That's awesome. Come on now.
The same carry-on bag too.
They just tuck in. All right, let's see. We did have a couple super chats, and there's a $20 from Hooked on the Horns. No, we got that one. Sorry, the 8 consecutive. My bad. 8 consecutive road and home and all that.
I think we're caught up.
No, this is the additional one. I knew one more came in. It's hard to see us losing more than one game this year since we have the best quarterback, play caller, and O-line in the country. Wow. Thomas going strong. Catch, this is an interesting combo here. Let's look at all three.
I'm with you on this. Let's examine this.
Let's go through this. Let's go all three. Is there a game coming up on the schedule where Texas is at a disadvantage in any of these three categories? Because I think there's obviously the blinking one's going to be Georgia.
Yeah.
You can make the argument maybe on that day that Georgia might have the better quarterback. And now see, when you say play caller, Kirby Smart's calling the other side of the ball, but still I'd give Kirby the respect to say He's a better play caller than Sark in theory, right? We're going to get to see it on the field.
Certainly.
We're going to get to see it on the field, right? But the
Kirby
man is
at his best.
He's a badass. He's a badass. And then the question
but let's take Georgia out of the equation.
Okay, if Georgia's out of the equation, then
because he says losing more than one game.
Right, more than one. Okay,
he's conceding Georgia.
Okay, so Thomas, we'll assume that one that you could still sleep with is Georgia. Outside of that, best quarterback.
Not on the schedule.
As far as the quarterback, it would have to be.
Well, look, let me ask you this question because remember when I said I had a question after buy or sell? It dovetails into this.
Okay.
After Carson Beck, who's the second best quarterback that Texas plays this year?
Let's see. Right now, I try not to look this early in the year. Right now, passing efficiency says it's Lagway.
Or Chapin.
Chapin's Mississippi.
Like fifth in the country right now.
Chapin's I didn't realize he was that high. I must have missed his name. And also, I still can't. When I hear his
Mississippi State sucks. So
and when I hear his name, I still think Baylor when I hear his name. I can't get it in my mind, in my brain. But man, if he keeps performing, it's Lagway as a possibility. If he can turn things around and they figure some things out on the offense, by the time you get to Wigman in November, maybe, and then catch the other guy I'll throw in. I don't know what it's going to look like that morning in Fayetteville, but everyone needs to not ignore Arkansas after what happened on Saturday. If you want to joke on that team, I'd say
you're viable. I just wouldn't say that they'll have the better. I don't know what that means at the quarterback position.
I don't think he's better than Quinn, certainly today, and I don't think he'll be better than Quinn in Fayetteville. I'm saying that's a discussion. When we get ready for that game, we're going to have to reassess things. It's a maybe, but I think Quinn's better than I'd take him over everybody he's going to face at this point, except maybe Beck.
So about the offensive line question here, it seems that there was, I think, sometimes you hear things and you can't remember when you hear them. And so then it's like, I heard somebody say this. Well, who'd you hear it from? I don't remember. But I feel like it had to have been the broadcast. They were talking about the Joe Moore, that one of the goals of this team was to win the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country. And that there was a sense that in this game, that the Joe Moore Award might be decided in this game. That when it's over with, there's a committee. The Joe Moore Award has a committee. And at the end of this game, they might just go, hang it up, guys. We know who our winner is going to be. Right now, it seems like Texas is the favorite for that.
I would think.
Although I still have some questions. Here's what I want to do, okay? Let's go 2005 versus 2024, man for man, okay?
Here we go. Okay.
Left tackle Kelvin Banks against Jonathan Scott.
I go Banks.
It's an easy one. That one for me is absolutely clear as day. That one's Kelvin Banks. No disrespect to Jonathan Scott, who was an All-American, but to me, that's cut and dry. Let's do the other tackle. Justin Blaylock versus Cam Williams.
Blaylock.
Cut and dry.
Every day of the week.
Left guard, Casey Studdard versus Hayden Connor.
Studdard. Every day of the week.
Right guard, DJ Campbell versus Will Allen.
Will Allen. Barely.
I agree. Lyle Sinline at center versus Jake Majors.
Sinline. I go Sinline.
We're all in the same. We are exactly in unison.
Okay.
Especially in the way that I think the closest is Campbell versus Allen. But I think I do think it's Will Allen.
Yeah. So
I don't know what that means other than, boy, that 05 offensive line was really good.
So, Catch, who's the right now that Michigan is out of the way, and obviously their run game is not to the point, and they had to replace all those guys, like they're not in the conversation. So, other than Georgia,
Arkansas.
what's another? Oh, is it Arkansas? What's the other offensive line?
Because they've got Jaquindon Jackson, and he's running the ball really well.
Yeah, that's again another reason why I would tell people, like, don't forget about Arkansas, man. Because I'll just tell you, Catch, from the A&M fan side of things, A&M gets Arkansas way before Texas does, and I do not know if the Aggies are ready for that offense. I really don't, man. When Green and Jackson get going, and they've got a couple good receivers, turnovers is what screwed them on Saturday. Catch, they got sloppy. Oklahoma State didn't push back so much as Arkansas let them back in.
And Arkansas always has an over their skis performance every year, it feels like.
Yeah.
They'll get somebody who's ranked pretty decent, and Arkansas will throw a performance completely different than their other performances all year long. So, yeah, you look, man, you don't have to twist my arm on Arkansas. You're the Aggie. You guys own Arkansas. So I feel like if there's any arm twisting that needs to be done, it's got to be from the Texas side trying to convince an A&M fan that Arkansas is anything to worry about, because it's been really anything but something to worry about for the Aggies.
That's the part that's not true. That's the mirage about that series. I worry about it every year. It's been a circus. It's been close. There's been like 4 of them that Arkansas should have won, and the Aggies actually won it. Like, it's been a crazy series. It has not been comfortable by any stretch as an A&M fan watching that series. And I think it's only one win Arkansas has, but it could have been more. And this one, I just don't know. I don't know. Based on what that A&M offense looks like right now, I am not sure what that one's going to be. And by the way, real quick to that point, David sent this earlier, and I'll get the super chat. Thomas, no, we got that one. Send a super chat if you want. We're out of those right now. David said A&M lost to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, well, they did not do well this past weekend. How worried is Chad? That's an interesting way to ask it, David. I don't know if
that's an interesting way to ask it.
It is, and I don't know if that's the part that makes me worry. So to your point, I'll dig in, but in a different way than you think. It's not that Notre Dame lost that would make me worry. Look, I would have told all of y'all, and I told Chance Mock when he made the pick. Chance took Notre Dame minus 28 on the Outsiders last week.
Ooh.
And I told him that I was thinking of the opposite, and I should have done it. I didn't have enough guts to do it, but I saw that and I went, oh God, take Northern Illinois all day. I didn't think it was outright, but I thought they'll cover that for sure. Notre Dame will squeak one out. I think they could lose at Purdue. That's the one I was looking at. They're going to see Hudson Card this week. I do not know if Notre Dame gets out of that one. But anyway.
Hudson Card with 2 weeks to get ready for that game.
Yeah, and what's he? He's like second in pass efficiency in the country right now.
Well, he played one game and it was pretty out of this world good.
True.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Again,
too early
this week. Did you see his final stat line?
He had a great stat line. But it's, against I guess this is.
And you can't say it. I'll say it. You're not allowed to say it was only App State.
Well, I was about to try to qualify. Apparently this year, App State, not the kind of team that'll jump up and bite you.
Hey, I had the Clemson game in my 4 box on YouTube TV.
Okay.
They look so explosive. They look like a top 10 team against App State in the way that it was just one big play after another. It felt like every touchdown was 80 yards in that game. And it was like, yeah, you do that the week after Georgia. Sure. But at least Clemson looked like a team with a pulse, as opposed to some of the other teams I watched on Saturday night where it was like, this is bad. And yes, OU, I'm thinking of you. I am. It was just not good. I was shocked.
So, David, a couple other things that jumped out to me. I mentioned Arkansas, and they're coming up on the Aggie schedule. That game's got me concerned a little differently now. I had the schedule wrong in my head. I thought the Aggies had another week, and then they went to Florida. Florida's this week. I do not know for sure.
One of the more interesting games in the country, I think.
Oh, it's fascinating. They're both 1-1. The loser will have 2. Is it going to be Napier at home, or is it going to be a second loss for the Aggies already? So I'm watching that. Here's the other thing, David. I'm going to make sure I say this out loud now. The other thing I noticed this week was Bowling Green going to Penn State, getting a 17-7 lead and only getting beat by 7. I'm not certain that the Aggies are ready for Bowling Green next week in College Station. Let me say that clearly, because if that team shows up with a plan, that could be one of those things where jokes start flying in a couple weeks if the Aggies cannot get this offense figured out. I'm just pointing it out. Bowling Green does not suck. And it's kind of that formula. It's between two SEC games. It's between Florida and Arkansas. And if the Aggies aren't paying attention, Bowling Green could give them at least a scare. Let me just say that out. Let's say that, David. Those are some of the things that jumped out to me this week as an A&M fan.
So,
all right,
Chad, let me end it with this.
Okay.
Max Olson on Twitter has a Mike Gundy quote.
Okay.
From today. Gundy was asked about D2 Gannon transfer Obi Ezigbo, who stepped in for an injured linebacker Colin Oliver.
Okay.
Quote, do you want me to go back into coach talk or do you want the truth? He was very inexpensive. The number of players that we go after that were ready to play at this level, we can't afford, end quote.
God, I love Gundy. I miss Gundy so much. I miss Gundy being in the conference that I'm mainly covering. He's one of the things I miss about the Big 12, Catch. He's never not entertaining to me. I love Gundy.
Do you want me to tell you coach speak, or do you want me to tell you the truth that guy cost us nothing and we are broke and we will never have transfers that anybody else would want, and I'm a great coach to take all these guys that are shitty and inexpensive and to make them good.
God, I love him. And I love Catch. If you're an Oklahoma State fan, I love that he never blinks on games like that, like Saturday. They never got down more than 2 scores. They were getting pushed around, but they pushed back. He yelled at him at the half. And then afterwards, he has that great smug look on his face. He never looks like things went away from the way he planned it. He always looks like that's what he knew was going to happen. And it's just pure Gundy. And that is extra pure Gundy. Thank you, Max Olson, for transmitting that to the masses. That is fantastic. All right, Catch, real quick before we get out of here, I do need to tell folks about my night's sleep last night. I know that's a little personal, but Sinus and Snoring specialists, they can make sure you're sleeping well. I had a great, just good, hard sleep last night. Had weird dreams that for some reason involved Will Ferrell. That's a whole nother breakdown, but that's how you know sometimes. You get in a good deep sleep, you get into the weird dreams and REM sleep and all that good stuff. Sinus and Snoring specialists can make sure you're getting that great deep sleep that you might have been missing all these years. Get it checked out. The sinus stuff, the allergy stuff. They can get rid of your allergies for good. They can also get rid of your sleep apnea for good. They can help you deal with it in all kinds of different ways. There's a lot of options out there, and they've got one that'll work for you. Check them out. It's 512-601-0303. You obviously got the QR code that'll get you right to sinussnoringent.com as well. Sinus and Snoring specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. Definitely good for those 11 o'clock kicks like Texas and Michigan to make sure you're ready. And boy, was Texas rested and ready for the beginning of that game. All right, Catch, anything else on a Monday?
No, man, we can wrap this one up. I'm good.
This afternoon at 6, it is Football with Friends, Alex and Cody, and their breakdown of what Texas did to Michigan and everything that's on their mind. The Outsiders tonight, talking about what Texas looked like, how great Quinn looked, and is it Atlanta or bust for the Longhorns? We'll get into that. Old Fashioned tomorrow at 9, 10 o'clock tomorrow. It is the legendary Modcast right here on Orange Bloods Live. Thank you for jumping in. I'm just going to scan for a super chat just as we're wrapping up here. Thank you to over 1,300 folks. It's damn near 1,400 in the Specs chat right now. Thanks to Specs for their partnership, and thanks to all of you for liking and subscribing and getting your notifications. We're headed up towards 21,000 subscribers. We're not quite there yet. So if you're not a subscriber, just double check that. We would love to have you on board with Orange Bloods Live. Get the benefit of subscribing, and then you get your notifications and you know when all the shows are happening. Until 12 noon tomorrow, we are house divided. Y'all take care of yourselves. See ya.